Okay, greetings. What's up? Happy Wednesday to you. Coming here to talk about customer experience and consistency in enterprises of the future. You gonna say anything?
Hello, everyone. Go ahead.
So this one's gonna be a little bit briefer today because it's basically reinforcing what we've been kind of going through, but this is kind of like a practical application of it. So oftentimes for smaller companies and for smaller businesses, it may be challenging to get a consistent customer experience. On the flip side, with larger companies, a consistent customer experience ends up creating certain other kinds of ecosystemical problems. I think I just made that word up. I don't know if it's in the dictionary. But one of the things that we see, or symptoms that we see with trying to create consistent customer experience, like for example, I'll give a really simple example. I was speaking with a restaurant, kind of like a consultant who helps restaurants to be able to scale better their units. And she was mentioning that if I wanted to use a specific product in my drinks, for example, I would need to create a menu where the product was consistently available for a consistent customer experience. But that having been said, then I would have to buy that product a certain way, which would limit my ability to support, say, for example, maybe like local small farms, or be able to like make use of when certain things are in season. I mean, we never really think about it, but a lot of our food, it's not, when it comes through a restaurant, it's not seasonally chosen. It's just the same menu throughout the year, and we don't even think about how that affects the ecosystem of farming and other things that are feeding that restaurant to produce the food for the customers. So that was a really simple example of where, you know, we can go into like bulk purchasing. Another simple example of a symptom that we find is with like different personalities, right? So depending on where you go, if for certain businesses, again, you go to one location and you have an amazing experience because of the person that was helping you. You go to another location, same thing, and you have an awful experience because of the person who was helping you. And so it can be quite frustrating, both as the consumer, but also as the business owner, to try to make sure that your customers are getting a consistent amount of consistent level, of service. And then also, you know, like it's kind of stressful when you know that your reputation really is made by every interaction, every transaction. Whether people buy or not, you are reinforcing your brand, you're reinforcing your reputation. And so sometimes that can also lead to trying to take some shortcuts in terms of trying to create something that isn't naturally occurring in a situation. And maybe you want to say something about that.
No, it's exactly like, it's even funny. This is between me and me. I'm sorry. That's how we got into this place of focusing on the on processes, right? And also what we call quality of the product, which in reality means lower cost, like cheaper product, and greater gain. Like those become one, like the greatest, the most important indicators of the business, right? So that's why if you change one of those ingredients, everything can fall apart, and this whole brand, let's say, can be built up on that. When we'll go further. Like I can't help myself from going into the last piece of it, but go now.
Actually, you know, you bring up a really good point, because as you were saying that, it made me remember, it's like there's so much fear around the customer experience. And what I mean by that is, you know, here in the US, often the saying was the customer's always right. And no, it's true, the customer isn't always right, but often we understand that if the customers, they're not going to come back or recommend our service or product to others. So then that sometimes creates a different kind of fear, which is like, how can I make this customer experience, so amazing and so great so that they'll come back or they'll refer us, versus how can I actually just deliver the best version of the product that I'm here to deliver or service to deliver, and not worry so much about one person's concerns or another person's concerns, but the overall experience, and whether that overall experience is in integrity with what I say I stand for and what I'm displaying to the world. So I always think about Starbucks as a great example of, a company that does this right. And no matter which Starbucks you go into, it's pretty much the same experience. I think in the many years I've gone into Starbucks, and maybe a couple of times can I remember ever having a less than, stellar experience. It's very rare. It's so rare because, they've taken a care to really establish those things. Now, I'm not a Starbucks employee. I don't work for them. I don't even drink their product that often, but what I do appreciate about them is the fact that the customer experience is so well curated, and it's carefully thought out from beginning to end. And that's consistency means that every time I walk into Starbucks, I'm already primed emotionally for how I'm going to feel, and also mentally for how I'm going to be able to deal and interact in that space and know that I will have a great experience. Now, I don't know how they achieve it behind the scenes, like I said, but one of the things that I know about the future enterprise standards is that things like bulk orders that interrupt the ecosystem for local suppliers, those are things that it'll no longer be a trade-off. Okay, if I want consistency, I've got to get, these distributors or others who aren't really actually caring about the true well-being of the local people and the planet and everything and the way that things are produced, but they're really looking at it more as sort of a bulk kind of sales process. That won't be an issue. There will no longer be that trade-off. So I have greetings at the door type processes, and we all know it. We've all gone into stores and there's somebody there greeting you and saying, "Hi, welcome in," and it's great, but sometimes depending on the company and the brand and depending on how it's implemented, it can also feel like a little weird because it doesn't quite jive with the rest of the experience. It's kind of thrown in there. And so what we want to do is make sure that whatever processes we have established, there's nothing wrong with process, but that we understand that it is truly in integrity. And I'm going to stop on the thing. But the last thing I wanted to say about that was also, it's almost like, and I'm going to use this word because I know it's going to set back and go off, which is, it's almost like robotization of employees sometimes, where they have to wear the clothes a certain way, they have to wear their hair a certain way, they have to speak a certain way, they have to use a certain, perfume, they have to wear a certain type of makeup. To that level of like, micro control of the appearance of the brand, because again, the company is trying to maintain consistent customer experience. And that's another like pitfall that can sometimes happen, where people might all look similar. I can even think of something as innocent as a flight attendant's kind of uniform and how they're all expected to look and be perceived. But that, depending on the situation and depending on the service or product offered, can actually end up backfiring if there's a lack of integrity. So here we keep coming back to the root cause of the problem being low integrity, equaling a low trust environment for customers and suppliers alike. And I just want to say before I close my mouth that all of these things that we mentioned, there's nothing wrong with any of them. All of these solutions absolutely can and will work. It's just how they are implemented. Are they being used intentionally? Is there a clear understanding of how it connects to other parts of the puzzle? Or is it just being done because that's standard practice, or that works well, or that's the cheapest thing, or some people like it, but maybe it's truly out of integrity with, even if the customer customers like integrity with what the business stands for. You have to start to see, well, where is this disparity? Where are we attracting customers who like something that's really not in harmony with our values? So these are things to think about. We're not knocking anything as horrible or bad, but we're saying moving forward, enterprise has to be a lot more conscious and intentional about these things, because we as entrepreneurs, as founders, we are responsible for the world we're creating. We can't just, blindly think that we can just say, oh, well, sorry, honey, it's not personal, it's just business. That's the phrase that we've heard, right? But now we're starting to understand that that's not how we can move into the future. That was the old era. And we see what just business has done to our planet and to human beings. Not okay. So we need to stand for something more than just business.
Yes, the whole thing about greeting at the door is brought up so many things for me, because one of the main things, like, they are usually those are people who are paid less than anybody else because they're kind of promoters, etc., or brand supporters. Then another bigger issue is that they have no idea about the value, the history of the brand. They're not connected, not aligned with it at all, right? So this is to tell you that we, as Deborah was saying, it's like nothing is wrong with anything. It's just we are observing and giving the feedback of what we have now, where we are living now, and what is the future where we're headed. So more and more people will be looking to so-called user experience, right? When now maybe like restaurants, they will be appreciated more seasonal products than whatever exotic thing you can, import, etc. But what I want to say here is the user experience, where like people can really feel that service, that customer care, even if you're delivering a product, like there is a care around it for the customer, etc. So it's all about the service. It's all, again, how you serve the humanity. And it takes us again back to what we've spoken the other time about the quality of life. So people will be more aware of the quality of life. They will be more aligned with their own values. And today we are highlighting mainly the integrity. So it doesn't matter who is on the other side, because that has been one of the business rules. If somebody pays me more money, I will treat them better. On the other side, the same people with money, they were like, okay, I pay good money, I get better business. That's why there are more small businesses who do mediocre service, so they don't have to be worried and, have that anxiety around, oh my God, they paid me 5 figures, I have to deliver the service, like overdo it. And that is like stressing me out, right? So it's not about that. It doesn't matter who is on the other side. It's the matter is who you are and the way you interact. You create the experiences for others, no matter who they are. It's because of you. So this is, again, with some of you will resonate, with some not. But those like who feel this way, I think it's a good news that, we are getting into that kind of world that we thought is impossible and non-existent, but we're getting closer to it, because it's this, how I can say, this difference before was seen less. Now it's coming out even much more. And that's why me and Deborah highlighting the different situations is to bring your attention and articulate some of those things that you've been living and feeling, but was like something really awkward, like you couldn't even discuss with anybody.
Yeah. I mean, and the key here is when there's integrity, then you've proven yourself trustworthy. You've created the highest possibility of having trust put in you, in your brand, in your company, in your people, right? When you are low in integrity, people feel that. There's no policy or makeup plan or outfit or uniform that is going to cover over a lack of integrity. And so it doesn't have to be complex. It's quite simple, but it is important to really come, we're not saying like you haul everything, but just, it's like I always say this, it doesn't matter what you do, it's just where you are when you're doing it, really. Like, it's not about like, okay, I have to change everything about how I do business, but like, let's just take one thing at a time and say, hey, look, where did we start doing this from? What was the intention behind it? And that's like the things that we just don't hear talked about much. We don't hear spoken of much in entrepreneurial circles. Is like, what's the true intention behind this thing that I'm doing? What's this true intention behind the way that we're showing up? Is it really just about money? Because now we understand that moving forward in the enterprise of the future is not about money. It's about quality of life. So it has to start to make full sense, full circle. And those founders, those leaders who choose to be early adopters of this new or alternative way of leading their companies, they're going to be at a full advantage. And it's not about competition either, but it's just about the fact that it makes things easier, it makes things more enjoyable, and it delivers a higher quality product and service for the people who you're here to serve. And every enterprise ultimately has a role to serve humanity. Now, right now, we see a lot of them serving humanity in a way that's not great, where it's actually doing more harm than good. And what we hope, back at Goal and I hope, is that we can encourage and inspire some to raise their awareness, and then in turn, from them raising their own awareness, intentionally raising the awareness of their company and of their people, so that it can have a more positive and healing and I should say healing, but beneficial impact on humanity, on the planet, and not a harmful one. So that's really the intention behind what we're sharing. I wanted to bring that up because I don't want it to look like we're saying that any of these things are wrong, but it is really important to be intentional.
Yes, again, if some of you is asking, and I had those, entrepreneurs asking me like, how can I make my business more conscious or more sustainable? And it sounds always so difficult, and there are so many consultants around it now, right? But in reality, it is exactly like aligned with who you are. It's the extension. It's like, even I will dare saying it's your business is a spiritual extension of who you are, because that's like what you came here to do, and you're delivering that through business. So I think we tend to complicate things, right? Especially in the business world. And now it will be, yes, a little bit complex for somebody, because we are completely changing from one way of doing to another. But in the same time, it is very simple, because just, remember how you started. Remember why you wanted to have this business. Like, what were those things that initially were pushing you towards something, right? Then just be consistent on that. Then, everything will fall into places.
And one thing I wanted to add was just that the business is not necessarily an extension of you always either. It's really kind of like your child, because you might have 15 businesses and each business has its own personality and purpose that's not you. So that's the other thing that's actually a relief with enterprise, is that you with this entity of the future, you can allow it to grow and develop and evolve as it chooses to, without feeling like you have to control everything. Again, actually ties in really well with the idea of having to control how everyone speaks and talks and everything. And it doesn't have to be so tightly controlled if you actually understand some of these really simple principles of allowing it to grow naturally, organically, and not interfering with its development with all of our standard business practices.
Yeah, I cannot hold myself from not adding this thing, because that's, again, it's both of us, both and me and Deborah, we think about business as a child. And again, it's very much like how much space you give to the child so they can, grow by themselves with their, being self-assured with their own integrity, not, influence it too much, etc. Then how much I can say pleasure, satisfaction on looking at them growing like that, right? So the same thing about business now, when you were telling, like, control and this whole thing around it, it reminded me of that patriarchal system, right, where there is about control, when instead I imagine my grandmother, where there is that, like, this loving feminine energy that is giving you space where you can experiment and grow and go on your own path.
Yeah. So ultimately, what this looks like is the global village, where if you think about in a traditional village, there are markets where people go and they barter, and they trade. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows where everybody lives, and everyone thus cares about how their product or service, the quality of it, because they know, okay, if I sell Mimi a bad fish and she gets sick, she's going to talk bad about me to the whole village, and no one's going to want to buy fish from me anymore, right? So it can be that simple. It's just to say, like, hey, like, we don't need to make it too fancy. How do we, consistently bring something that's good? Like that person is our family. Would I sell this particular food? And this might be a major change for your company. If it was my family, if it was my family eating it, would I do something this way if it was for my family? Again, it's like starting to just keep it really simple. So it doesn't matter if you're serving 10 people or 10 million people. If you can just start to come back to the simplicity of, like, how would I show up if it was somebody that knew where I lived, who was one of my close companions, and I knew my reputation was dependent on that? How would I show up in serving them? And what things would I not do that they might ask me to do, but I would say, no, I'm not going to do that because that's out of integrity for me. All right. So anyway, some food for thought. Hopefully this got some things going in your mind, and always feel free to reach out to either one of us if you have any questions.
All right. It was great talking to you, and looking for your feedback. Thank you. Bye.